I'm Peter Turchi, and I'm going to talk about what I call power plays, or dynamic scenes and complex characters. The notion of a story being about conflict has been around for a long time, and some people will resent it. They think it necessarily means focusing on arguments and physical attacks, and that's not what I'm interested in at all. I'm interested in power in all its forms. Physical power is one of them, physical strength. And then there are the types of power that are a little harder to identify. Now, those can be psychological, they can be moral, they can be something as elusive as charisma. Stories don't necessarily happen just because someone has power and someone else doesn't. And in fact, what I'm interested in is when power or an advantage shifts. That is when different characters assert their abilities. A classic example is in just about any classroom when the doddering old professor can't work some piece of technological gear and a student stands up and has it completely mastered, of course, and straightens everything out. Immediately, power is shifted in the room. What's interesting in stories is to try to find where characters have authority, where they seem strong, and then where they're put in some position of vulnerability. And so one of the exercises I like to give students, and one of the things I do for myself when I'm revising, is to look at a story, and if there's a character who seems to be in charge of things, I try to find out how or under what circumstances or in what context that character might not have the same kind of authority. So a good example is from the Iliad. When Achilles defeats Hector, those are two warriors going to battle. Physical strength is really the power at work there. Achilles wins. Achilles is not a good winner. He decides he's going to desecrate Hector's body and drag it around for days. The gods get a little weary of that. But more importantly, Priam, Hector's father, wants to step in and give his son's body a proper burial. Priam's an old man, and he approaches Achilles, and of course he doesn't try to subdue him. He doesn't try to overwhelm him with physical power, because that's Achilles' great strength. Instead, he tries to appeal to his sense of honor, and he appeals to his sense of himself as a son.
Priam?
And so through a sort of moral authority, Priam is able to get what he wants. In fact, Achilles agrees to give him Hector's body and go home and give him a burial. The point isn't to think about power in the crudest sense, about who's strong, who's domineering, who's overbearing. It's to think about the situations we're in every day and who has authority when and why, or who asserts control and what that reveals about that person, and then when that relationship shifts and what that can reveal as well. Ideally, this will lead not only to more dynamic scenes, but to more dynamic stories and more complex characters.